Coming up on 5 Minute News. US Justice Department appeals order voiding mask mandate on public transit. Israel and Gaza trade fire as Middle East tensions mount. And Russia tests nuclear missile that Putin calls world's best. It's Thursday, April 21. I'm Anthony Davis. The US Justice Department is to file an appeal to overturn a Trump-appointed judge's order that voided the federal mask mandate on planes and trains and in travel hubs, officials said on Wednesday. The notice came minutes after the CDC asked the Justice Department to appeal the decision handed down by the federal judge in Florida earlier this week. A notice of appeal was filed in federal court in Tampa. The CDC said in a statement on Wednesday that it is its continuing assessment that at this time, an order requiring masking in the indoor transportation corridor remains necessary for the public health. It remained unclear whether the Biden administration would ask the appeals court to grant an emergency stay, which would be a whiplash moment for travelers and transit workers. Most airlines and airports, many public transit systems, and even ride-sharing company Uber lifted their mask-wearing requirements in the hours following Monday's ruling. A federal judge in Florida had struck down the national mask mandate for mass transit on Monday, leading airlines and airports to swiftly repeal their requirements that passengers wear face coverings. Meanwhile, a poll by the Associated Press Nork Center for Public Affairs Research has found that despite opposition to the requirement that included verbal abuse and physical violence against flight attendants, 56% of those surveyed favor requiring people on planes, trains, and public transportation to wear masks, compared with just 24% opposed. Palestinians fired several rockets into southern Israel from the Gaza Strip early this morning, as Israeli aircraft hit Gaza militant sites soon after an earlier rocket strike that was the second such attack this week. The cross-border Gaza violence was an extension of Israeli-Palestinian tensions that have been building in Jerusalem. The Israeli military said 4 rockets were fired from Gaza early Thursday and were intercepted by air defenses. Late on Wednesday, a rocket was fired from Gaza early this morning and were intercepted by air defenses. Late Wednesday, a rocket was fired from Gaza, triggering Israeli airstrikes. There were no immediate reports of casualties or damage, and no one claimed the rocket strikes. Israel holds the Hamas militant group that rules Gaza responsible for all rocket fire and typically responds with airstrikes within hours. Early this morning, Israeli warplanes conducted a series of airstrikes at a Hamas military site in the central Gaza Strip. Social media posts by activists showed smoke billowing in the air. The Israeli military said the airstrikes were aimed at a militant site and an entrance of a tunnel leading to an underground complex holding raw chemicals to make rockets. Tensions have surged in recent weeks after a series of deadly attacks inside Israel, followed by military operations in the occupied West Bank. In a show of strength, 2 months into its assault on Ukraine, Russia test-launched a new nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missile, which President Vladimir Putin said on Wednesday would make Moscow's enemies stop and think. Putin was shown on TV being told by the military that the long-awaited Sarmat missile had been test-launched for the first time from Plesetsk in northwest Russia and hit targets in the Kamchatka Peninsula, nearly 3,700 miles away. The test of the Sarmat, under development for years, did not surprise the West, but came at a moment of extreme geopolitical tension. Russia has yet to capture any major cities since it sent tens of thousands of troops into Ukraine on February 24th. This truly unique weapon will strengthen the combat potential of our armed forces, reliably ensure Russia's security from external threats, and provide food for thought for those who, in the heat of frenzied aggressive rhetoric, try to threaten our country, Putin said. Announcing the invasion 8 weeks ago, Putin made a pointed reference to Russia's nuclear forces and warned the West that any attempt to get in its way will lead to such consequences that you have never encountered in your history. Days later, he ordered Russia's nuclear forces to be put on high alert. Douglas Barry, Senior Fellow for Military Aerospace at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, said the launch was an important milestone after years of delays caused by funding issues and design challenges. He said more tests would be needed before Russia could actually deploy it in place of aging SS-18 and SS-19 missiles that were well past their sell-by date. Barry said the Sarmat's ability to carry 10 or more warheads and decoys, and Russia's option of firing it over either of the Earth's poles, posed a challenge to ground and satellite-based radar and tracking systems. You can subscribe to 5-Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5-Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5-Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.